Mexico is on high alert.
The drug cartels taking on the Mexican federal government and threatening to kill anyone who gets in their way.
Tourists in the popular Mexican holiday city of Puerto Vallarta trapped in their hotels as war rages on the streets below.
Violence following the killing of the notorious cartel boss El Mencho.
I would put him at the same level as Pablo Escobar and El Chapo.
His full name, Nemesio Ruben Osguero Cervantes, alias El Mencho. He was the founder and undisputed head of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, one of the most powerful criminal organizations in Mexico. The cartels in Mexico are very powerful. They have their own military. They rival the government. They don't have a high value on human life. They like public executions. They want people to know they have authority, they have power, they have muscle, and they carry weight. And they do it very publicly. Who's going to move in to try to take over? How is CJNG going to retaliate against Mexican authorities to show, hey, we're not going away? Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. All is very good and very blessed on this end. As always, my friends, I give all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving to our God for that. Well, I'm sure everybody has heard by now what happened in Mexico. And that is, there was a retaliation from the cartels after a drug lord by the name of El Mencho, that's what he calls himself, was killed by Mexican authorities. And it seems that violence broke out all over Mexico. And, you know, let me say this before I go any further. I love visiting Mexico. I love the Mexican people. We have a place in Puerto Vallarta that we go to quite frequently. And it's a wonderful town. I mean, really, everything about it is so beautiful. And we didn't expect any violence ever to break out there because it's very peaceful. It's one of the most visited cities in all of Mexico. It's beautiful. Really love it. And it was kind of surprising to hear that violence broke out in that city. And hopefully that's the end of it. I understand that order has been restored, even though the State Department here in the United States has advised all American citizens not to visit Mexico, at least until they get a handle on this and get it under control. And I want to talk about a couple of things. First of all, I'll get into some of the facts. I took some notes about exactly what did transpire yesterday. You know, some of the questions now remaining, is the U.S. in any way going to make their move against the cartels? Trump's been talking about that. As you know, he's been blowing up some ships from, or boats, I should say, from Venezuela that have been carrying drugs into the United States. There's some controversy about that. Of course, people on the left are, demonizing Trump for doing that. But what's new? They'll demonize Trump for doing anything. So, look, I'm a proponent of trying to do anything necessary to stop the drug flow into this country. We have 100,000 people a year, mostly young people, that are dying from drug overdoses. Much of it from this new horrible drug, fairly new anyway, fentanyl, that's been lacing a lot of the other drugs. I mean, we had personal tragedy here in our family. And as you know, I had a sister that died of an overdose. We've had drugs just not good in our family, let's put it that way. So I'm a proponent of anything that's going to stop the flow of drugs into America, stop the flow of drugs, period, because it's obviously, not good for any society anywhere. But let's get into what happened yesterday. Let's hope that the violence ends. We don't know what it was all about. Again, it was retaliation, I should say, against the Mexican government for taking out El Mencho. And I know there are different cartels now that operate in Mexico. And I'm going to talk about the difference between Mexican cartels and the American and Italian Mafia. Big difference. And I'll get into that in a minute. Let me first review what happened yesterday. Nemesio Ruben Osguero Cervantes, alias El Mencho, he was the leader and founder of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG. And he was killed in a Mexican military operation in Jalisco State on Sunday, the 22nd of February, 2026, which was just recent. Mexican authorities describe this as one of the most significant blows to organized crime, the cartels, since the capture of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. Big deal. Everybody knows who El Chapo was. And they're saying this is the biggest, capture, killing of any drug lord ever since the capture of El Chapo. The operation took place in or near the mountain town of Tapalpa in his home state of Jalisco. It was conducted by Mexican Army Special Forces. Officials say they attempted to apprehend him. He was wounded in a shootout, and then he died while being airlifted to Mexico City for a medical treatment. U.S. agencies, get this now, provided intelligence support to Mexican forces, reflecting close U.S.-Mexico coordination and U.S. political pressure to target cartel leadership. Since Trump got into office, he's been pressuring Mexico to come down on the cartels. He labeled them a terrorist group. He even said that he was going to go into Mexico on his own. The Mexican government resisted that, which I understand. They don't want foreign forces coming into their country. They said, we'll do it. But we do know now that America's been working with the Mexican government to try to get this cartel situation under control. And hey, cartels want to operate in Mexico, fine. Just keep them out of the United States. Unfortunately, there's a big market here for drugs. It's going to be difficult. California, where I live, is one of the main entryways for all the drugs. We have a sanctuary city, thanks to our wonderful governor and our Democratic leadership here. So drugs pour in, no question. Then they go throughout this state and throughout the country. So the American U.S. forces, I believe what happened here, not positive, but this is what I believe, in the same way that U.S. intelligence was able to pinpoint where Maduro was in Venezuela, they gave that reconnaissance and that information to Mexico, and they, in turn, the Mexican government was able to locate and apprehend El Mencho. Let me continue. At this point, I got to tell you, people, my blackberry wine, it's in such high demand. Blackberry, strawberry, my two favorites out of all of our fruit wines. So when you see me enjoying a glass of Franzese wine, it's normally my blackberry. I don't have a glass of wine every single day. I would say 2-3 times a week. Maybe a little bit more depending upon where I am, but I just love the blackberry wine, our fruit wines, I didn't even know we were going to have them when we first got into this company, but our vineyards in Armenia, they created this beautiful wine. They had us taste it and they said, hey, we got to sell it here in America. It's going to be a big seller. And really it has been. It's been unbelievable. So, if you like fruit wines, and if you don't like fruit wines, try it again. I guarantee that you will. But they're delicious. They really are. So, after the announcement of his death, CJNG cells unleashed a wave of retaliatory violence in multiple states, especially Jalisco, which Puerto Vallarta being one of them. Reports indicate buses and vehicles were burned, highways and city roads were blocked, and attacks carried out on businesses and infrastructure. As far as we know, I believe there were 30 deaths, but I don't believe any American citizens were killed. Important to know. I don't believe any American citizens were killed up until this point. Guadalajara and other cities partially shut down. Residents stayed indoors, and major tourist areas like Puerto Vallarta were affected. U.S. diplomatic missions issued shelter-in-place advisories and travel warnings for Americans in affected regions. I know they stopped, the airport was shut down at Puerto Vallarta and other places. All flights going in and out from the major airlines were stopped. I believe as of Monday, they were starting up again. As of Monday, there was no violence that we were able to see in Puerto Vallarta. And the reason I keep mentioning Puerto Vallarta, because that's the city that was all over the news. And like I said, I visit there quite often. Wonderful city, beautiful place. People are always wonderful in Mexico. They're always just so outgoing, so, hospitable. They want to do everything for you. The Mexican people are great. Who he was. His full name, Nemesio Ruben Osguero Cervantes, alias El Mencho. He believed to be around 59 years old at the time of his death. He was the founder and undisputed head of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, one of the most powerful criminal organizations in Mexico. And let me tell you something, the cartels in Mexico are very powerful. They have their own military. They rival the government there. There's no question about it. It's not like the Mafia here in the United States, I'll get into that, or even the Mafia in Italy. They rival the government. They have artillery. They have power. They have a lot of government people on the payroll, probably mostly the local police more than anything else. No question about it. They've been running that country in a big way for a very long time. one of the reasons why Trump was putting pressure on the Mexican government to get rid of the cartels. I don't think he'll ever do it, but he's pressuring them. Under his leadership, El Mencho, CJNG expanded rapidly, rivaling or surpassing the Sinaloa, which is a major cartel, in influence across multiple Mexican states. CJNG's core activities included large-scale cocaine and methamphetamine trafficking, fentanyl distribution to the United States, extortion, fuel theft, kidnapping, and control of local economies. I want to tell you, a lot of the cartels, there's drugstores on every corner in legitimate, legal drugstores on every corner in Mexico. And from my understanding, most of the cartels own these drugstores. They operate them, they own them, and they're legal. How that happens, I don't know. I'm not that involved in it. He cultivated a reputation as a ghost boss. Few current photos, very low public profile, operating from rural strongholds to evade capture for years. He was smart in that regard. He wasn't a John Gotti type. Known for sanctioning extreme public violence, attacks on military convoys, mutilated bodies left as messages, and terror tactics against communities. I have to say this, from my observation of the cartels, they don't have a high value on human life. They like public executions. They want people to know they have authority, they have power, they have muscle, and they carry weight. And they do it very publicly with respect to that. And, the Mexican people are even in fear of them. There's no question about it. You don't want to step out of line with these drug cartels. He faced multiple U.S. federal indictments, including drug trafficking and weapons charges, as well as operating a continuing criminal enterprise under the Kingpin Act. So he was wanted here in the United States. The U.S. had offered up to $10 to $15 million for information leading to his capture, placing him among the world's most wanted criminals. Son Ruben Azuguera Gonzalez, El Menchito, was extradited to the U.S., convicted of drug and weapons charges, and is serving a life sentence in a Florence, Colorado supermax. Okay, so they got his son. His daughter, Jessica Joanna Azuguera Gonzalez, pleaded guilty in the U.S. to offenses related to money laundering and the Kingpin Act violations and was released in 2022. So they got his kids too. Other close relatives are also believed to be in U.S. custody, weakening any direct bloodline succession. So who wins from all this? Well, the Mexican government, they gained a major symbolic victory. They demonstrated the capacity to strike top-tier cartel leadership after years of being criticized. The Mexican government is always criticized because people believe that the cartels run the country. Can frame the operation as a key success in restoring security ahead of high-profile international events such as the World Cup matches that occur in Mexico. It strengthens its position in bilateral negotiations and security cooperation with the United States. Maybe now the United States will have a little more faith in Mexico's ability to apprehend and their desire to apprehend the cartels. A lot of Mexican government officials, it was hands off. They didn't want to mess with the cartels. Too messy, too bloody. They just stayed away. Just don't upset the apple cart and we'll leave you guys alone. Not a good policy. For the U.S. government and law enforcement, it removes a primary architect of fentanyl and meth that flows into the U.S., at least at the leadership level. So maybe we cut off. Is it going to stop? No, it's not. Validates intelligence sharing and joint operations with Mexican military forces. Like I said, it was the United States that gave them the intelligence information, we believe, that pinpointed the whereabouts of El Mencho. It provides a high-profile example to argue that pressure, sanctions, and coordinated operations can produce results when you're going against these cartels. What happens with rival criminal organizations? Well, the Sinaloa-aligned factions and other regional groups see an opening now to move into CJNG territories, ports, and smuggling corridors, and they're going to try to do that. No question. The Sinaloa cartel is very powerful. Local gangs may leverage the power vacuum to seize control of local markets and rackets. Now, just because they took the leader out doesn't mean that the cartel is going to fall apart. There's always somebody to take your place. However, these wins typically come with a significant rise in violence as groups contest those spaces. Here's the problem. It's not so much the cartels going after American citizens or normal people. They're going to go after one another. And when that happens, violence breaks out in different towns, different cities, and people maybe get caught in a crossfire, or they're afraid to go out of their house. It disrupts businesses, puts things at a standstill. So that's what you got to worry about. We're going to see what happens now in the next couple of months or next couple of weeks, maybe. Hopefully, it's not going to affect tourism, but I don't know. State Department is saying, hey, don't go to Mexico. So we'll see. Who clearly loses in the short term? Well, civilians in CJNG dominated areas face increased risk from blockades, arson, and shootouts. There's going to be a power struggle here. There's no question about it. So normal people, unfortunately, innocent people, are going to be impacted by this. Businesses and tourism in Jalisco and other affected states suffer from fear and travel warnings. Biggest thing. If we're being told to stay out of Mexico, nobody's going to travel there for the foreseeable future. Local security forces may face revenge attacks and intensified ambushes. What we know about the cartel and what to expect. High militarized cartels with paramilitary style units. Remember, this is like military. They have a lot of equipment. They have firepower. They're armored vehicles, heavy weaponry capable of confronting state forces directly. They can fight the government. The Mafia in the U.S. can't. And the Mafia in Italy really can't. We don't have that paramilitary type of equipment. Not in Italy, not in America. We'll get into that more. More decentralized than older cartels, built on regional cells and semi-autonomous franchises that pledge loyalty but cooperate independently. So what they're saying is maybe now there's going to be a lot of little gangs that are going to take over or operate independently without answering to one of the major cartels. I don't know if that'll be allowed to happen. It's like the Mafia allowing little gangs to operate in their territory. They're not going to allow that. It's why we wouldn't allow bookmakers to work without working with us or for us. No, you're in our territory, you're going to work with us. And I think that's what will happen here. Known for rapid public retaliation when leadership figures are targeted, designed to punish the state and signal strength. Short-term reaction, continued roadblocks and vehicle arsons on key highways, especially in western Mexico. Possible attacks on police stations. This is what you can expect. Military patrols and government buildings in CJNG heavy regions. The use of narcomantas or banners, social media videos, and rumors to shape perceptions and intimidate rivals and communities. A lot of stuff is going to happen in the aftermath of this, no question. Elevated risk to civilians who ignore cartel curfews or attempt to pass through blocked roads. Got to be careful here. The civilians got to be put on notice, and they know this. They don't mess with the cartels. Succession and internal dynamics. Well, there's no obvious successor from the immediate family since many of them are already apprehended or in trouble. Key relatives are imprisoned in the U.S., limiting a dynastic handover. Multiple regional plaza bosses and commanders may compete to control CJNJ's remaining assets, meaning that this cartel is not going to fall apart. Somebody's going to take power. Somebody's going to take control. Will the Sinaloa cartel move in and take over? That'll be a war. Who knows? Will local gangs move in and try to take over? Who knows? We said the family is depleted. It can't be really family members of El Mencho. So who knows what's going to happen? That's where we have to see what's going to go on in the next couple of weeks. A powerful internal figure consolidates control and recenters CJNJ around new leadership. If there is somebody powerful and respected enough to do that, that person may emerge. CJNJ fragments into rival factions. Like I said, Sinaloa can take it over, maybe local gangs, some rebranding or allying with competing cartels. Or a loose federation survives with the CJNJ name used by semi-independent groups. Long-term expectations. Drug flows are unlikely to stop. It's not going to stop the flow of drugs. No way. When you have these sanctuary cities like California, thank God now we have a closed border. Drugs aren't coming in the way they were before. Thanks to President Trump. You can hate him, whatever. At least be honest about it. We don't need drugs flowing into this country, and he closed the border. Something Biden couldn't do, didn't want to do. As a matter of fact, he did just the opposite. We don't have to be redundant. The geographic map of control may shift as territories change hands, altering local power structures and violence patterns. From my notes, Mexican authorities may further militarize certain regions to prevent spiraling violence, at least temporarily. All right, so these are the things that could happen now. It's a wait and see thing. Let's see what happens. Who's going to move in to try to take over, CJNG? How is CJNG going to retaliate against Mexican authorities to show, hey, we're not going away. You don't do this to us. Who knows what they're going to do? This is what we're going to find out in the next couple of days, weeks, months. So we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, there is a travel ban. I don't know if it's a ban. It's an advisory that we shouldn't be traveling to Mexico. That's all I know. Hopefully that's lifted and things change fairly soon. What's the difference between, the cartels in Mexico and the Mafia? I've been saying this and I always get, oh, Michael, stop. Let me tell you something. There's a lot of people on the internet who read the media, read social media, read the newspaper, and they think they become the authority on the Mafia, okay? I grew up in it. My father was a powerful figure. He was the underboss of the Colombo family. My father was one of the most investigated members of that life ever. I'm familiar with it since I'm 3 years old. And then I was in the life for over 20 years myself. I know everything that I could know about that life, about what we did, what we didn't do, during my era, and even before. But people want to tell me, oh, Michael, you're wrong, this and that and that. Really? Where did you learn that? From the media? From social media? Do you believe 90% of what you read what you see on social media? So much of it is nonsense, especially about my former life. There's guys mouthing off there saying things, they don't know what the hell they're talking about in plain English. So if you're commenting to me, please don't try to tell me about the life that I lived and knew and grew up in. Anyway, major difference. We were not, during my time, major drug dealers. And to my knowledge, going back to the days of Al Capone and Mazzaria and Maranzano and Luciano, we were not the major drug dealers. We were not. End of story. Did we deal with drugs? Yes. No question. Everybody brings up Vito Genovese. I know. Yes, he was a drug dealer. Was the whole mafia dealing with drugs? No. Were we anywhere near as powerful in the drug business as the cartels? No. Did we have the same military might in the United States that the cartels have in Mexico? Absolutely not. And during my era, and my era was from the mid-50s, I would say. And when I say my era, my dad. And I know, my dad talked to me. My dad hated anything to do with drugs. And he told me time and time again, we do not deal with drugs from when I was a kid. And during my era in that life, we were not allowed to deal with drugs. We were told straight out, if you deal with drugs, you die. Now, were some guys doing it on the sneak? Yes. Some guys were visiting gay bars on the sneak. Okay. Were we allowed to do it? No. We were not supposed to be doing it. And for those of you that contradict you with we're drug dealers, no. Remember, Paul Castellano was going after John Gotti and his crew. Why? Because he heard they were dealing drugs. And it was his excuse to eliminate them because he didn't like John anyway. And John retaliated by killing him first. So, but that was the whole reason, because his crew was dealing with drugs, according to Castellano. So stop contradicting yourself. We were not, those of you that say differently, we were not major drug dealers. Some guys were doing it on the sneak. I knew a guy very close to me, a soldier of mine, that blew his brains out in a phone booth. Tony Orgello, Tony the Gawk, we called him. Because he was afraid he got involved in a minor drug deal, and he was afraid we were going to walk him in the room and take his life. So please don't tell me when I'm telling you we were not major drug dealers during our era. We were not major drug dealers, period. Now in Italy, I'm talking about the United States. Now in Italy, different. Yes, they were heroin dealers. No question about it. No question. That was not the United States. And don't cite the pizza connection for me, because those guys came from Italy. And they were pushing drugs through pizza stores. It wasn't us, and we were not supposed to be involved with them. Again, my era, so please don't tell me what I know, and what I experienced, and what I lived. I hope we got that clear. Drug cartels, they operate differently. One guy emerges. It's not, you don't take a blood oath or any of that stuff. You don't do that. We were an organized syndicate. The cartels are different. The cartels were built, okay, based upon extremely lucrative drug business. They made billions of dollars, no question about it. And as a result, They wanted to fight the Mexican government. So what did they do? They made themselves strong. They're a paramilitary group. They could fight the Mexican government. They may ultimately lose, but they could put up a fight. We can't do that. We could never do that here in the United States. The Mafia wasn't built for that. No way. And if one of our leaders were taken out by the FBI, if John Gotti or Paul Castellano or anybody was taken out, or Joe Colombo, who I believe was taken out by the FBI in a plot designed by the FBI, we didn't retaliate against the government. We didn't start shooting up the neighborhoods. We didn't close down businesses. That's not who we were. It's not who the Mafia is in America. Totally different than the cartels. We're not even in the same conversation with respect to drugs and the ability that the cartels had, the strength that the cartels had within the country of Mexico. And when I say the strength, I mean military, firepower. We didn't have any of that. And let me tell you, the drug cartels, they will kill. They don't have a value of human life. I'm sorry. They'll make examples. They'll hang people. They'll slaughter people. They'll murder people. We didn't do that. We didn't go into neighborhoods and kill people to make a point. We didn't take over cities. We had our neighborhoods. We protected our neighborhoods. It was totally different organization and operation. In Italy, a little bit different, but Italy doesn't have the firepower that the cartels have. They lock up Mafia guys. They weaken the Mafia quite a bit in some places. The cartels are strong as ever. Strong as ever. The Mexican government doesn't even want to mess with them at times. The United States is pushing them now. So there is a very distinct difference between the Mafia and the drug cartels in Mexico. Very, very distinct difference. We operated differently. We had a certain code. You know the deal. I don't have to break down the Mafia. Many of you watching, you understand. So please, when it comes to that, don't even make the comparison because it's not valid at all. Now, the cartels were not strong here in the United States. They were bringing the drugs in, but they weren't strong here in the United States. And had they challenged us here they couldn't do what they're doing in Mexico in the United States. That would never happen. They couldn't do it. Our government would never allow it. They'd never be able to have that firepower. We, as the Mafia, would never be able to have that kind of power. The government here would never allow it. So there's no comparison in that regard. All right, so let me sum this up. You know, the cartels operate like a paramilitary group. They want you to know, they want the Mexican government to know, we have firepower, we have authority, and we will do whatever it takes to maintain control of our business, period. You're not going to stop us. And we have no problem fighting you. We have no problem killing you. We'll come after you. We'll do what's necessary to show you, okay, that we can compete. You're not going to destroy our business. The Mafia, we didn't do that. We operated, or we tried to operate in the shadows. We were a lot more subtle with the control that we had. We infiltrated unions. We did things like that, okay? There's no comparison between the cartels and the Mafia. Even in the structure, it was just totally different. In the cartels, yeah, there was a lot of nepotism. We had that too here in the Mafia. But the power structure in the Mafia didn't allow for family members to just move into certain positions. Didn't allow for that. Where in the cartels, it does allow for that. I think if El Menchito were out and not in prison, he would probably be the one to take over, you know, his father's spot. Doesn't always happen like that. As a matter of fact, it rarely happens like that in the United States. So let's understand they're two entirely different organizations that operate entirely differently. The drug business is the cartel's main business. They make billions, not us. We did things differently, not the Mafia. So look, let's get back to you know, what's going on there, and let's hope. We don't know what's going to happen in the weeks ahead. You know, who knows? I don't think it's going to end. I don't think it was just a showing yesterday and that's the end of it. I think we have to be on watch. I hate to tell people to be afraid to travel to Mexico. I don't want to do that. You know, let's wait and see, because it's a beautiful place and I want to go back to Puerto Vallarta. I know my friends want to go back there. So, you know, let's see what happens. But I'll try to keep you up to date. If I hear something, if I got any inside information, because we do have some, friends that live there, and they've been giving us some feedback, we'll let you know. But until now, just beware, be on your guard. If you're going to travel there, just be careful, know where you're going, and be prepared. That's it for today, my friends. How do I leave you? Same way, never going to change. Be safe. What can I tell you? I tell you, people, we live in a dangerous world, man. Every single day we open up the newspaper, we look online, and we're seeing some other tragedy. So we live in a dangerous world. I got to tell you, not in Dubai. They're pretty safe there, and please don't, Sharia law. No. And by the way, in Dubai, it's not totally operated by Sharia law. The Sharia law mostly applies to the Muslims. There is a combination, kind of a hybrid law, from the French government and some European governments that operate outside of Sharia law in Dubai. So don't go there and, you're going to get your hands chopped off. No, you're not. That's not true. I know, lived there, friends that I visited there. I spent a lot of time. I got a lot of friends that live there. So, I like to say things as they are. Sometimes we have preconceived notions because of what we hear. All right? You want to go to places that are safe. Bottom line. And with all this immigration stuff that's been going on, open borders everywhere, you got to tell it like it is. It's just not safe. The wrong people come into the country unvetted and they wreak havoc. It's happening in Europe. It happened here in the United States. Just this morning, the president was given a Medal of Honor to the families of the women that were raped and murdered by illegal criminal migrants that came over the border. If you don't have a closed border, you don't have a country. The bottom line, you don't have borders then. You don't have a country, and it belongs to anybody. So, look, all I can tell you is, people, be safe. Be healthy. I'm really encouraged that so many more people, at least in my circle, and even what I see online, are talking about their health, about preserving their health, about eating the right foods. I got to be honest, a couple of months, maybe a little more than that, I never really looked at the labels on foods. Now I do. And I have to mention this. You can say I'm touting my wine or whatever, and I don't know where my wine bottles are, but you can say this. The healthiest wines come out of Europe. They don't have all the additives. They don't have all the arsenic, the glyphosate or something they call it, the pesticides that they spray here. The healthiest, it's a big study done on this, come out of Europe. Italy, Armenia, where my wine comes. None of those added preservatives, no added sulfites. You drink it, you don't get a hangover, and you don't feel like you're ready to crash, because the FDA here is not doing their job. What's arsenic doing to a great degree in all of our wines? And this glyphosate, I'm not saying it right, but you know what I mean. It's a pesticide. It's no good. So the healthiest wines are coming out of Europe. Sorry, Napa Valley, it's true. Coming out of, and I love Napa wines, but the healthier wines are coming out of Europe, and that includes Armenia. Very healthy. So Franzese wine, try it. Just try it. See how you feel afterwards. Be safe, be healthy. And yeah, I mean this, people, when I say it. God bless each and every one of you. God bless your families, your neighborhoods, your communities, your loved ones. And yes, God bless America. God bless the Mexican people. God bless anyone that's suffering and just being oppressed anywhere in the world. We don't want to see that. As Christians, people say silly things, and I'm going to continue. Michael, you can't be a Christian if you support Trump. Oh, give me a break, will you please? Give me a break. Stop throwing the Christian card at me. It's stupid, okay? It really is. It's stupid to say that. What does that have to do with anything? Because I support Trump. Can I ask you a question? Are having two genders Christian or not? Very Christian. God created man and woman. Trump's policy. Pro-life, Trump's policy. Biblical. No trans men competing against women in sports. Biblical. No question about it. And I can cite the verses. Okay? No gender-affirming surgery in minors to change their gender or try to change their gender. Trump's policy, biblical. I support those policies So why would you say I'm not Christian because I support Trump? They say, well, because he's a liar. Oh, really? Give me one person on the face of the earth that hasn't lied. One, including me. Stop. It's so ridiculous. Really, it's ridiculous to say things like that. Think before you comment, people. And I got to say this, 95% of the comments are intelligent and supportive and reasonable. That's all we ask for. And if you don't like Trump, I get it. You don't have to like Trump. You have an opinion. You don't have to like him. You don't have to like his policies. I get it. But why do you knock people that support them? I don't knock you for supporting the candidate of your choice. I disagree with you, but I'm not going to say you're a bad person or you're a non-Christian or whatever. Support who you like, but be honest about all of it. And I've told people many times, you can complain about Trump all you want, and I'll listen, because you might be right about certain things. For me, it's not Trump right or wrong, and there's certain things that I disagree with, no question, okay? But if you're going to have that conversation with me, then you have to be able to admit what Biden and the Democrats are doing wrong also, and what they did to this country. You have to. If you don't do that, then you have no conversation with me, because you're not being honest. You've either got TDS, or you just hate Trump and you'll say whatever. You got to admit both ways. It's got to go both ways. Otherwise, there's no intelligent conversation. So anyway, got off on it. God bless you all. And yes, I'll see you next time. Take care.